Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about quite a few things. Our energy is, we're hitting a snag here because obviously gas is high. Everyone knows it's high. And now we've reached a point where they're like, saying beyond like, it's a good thing because demand. And they started to blame it on OPEC because they weren't producing more, and it's like, sir, didn't you try to cut off our supply or have us stop drilling? So now we're tapping into our reserves, and they're releasing our reserves to alleviate the prices of gas, and that'll probably only be for a little while. So we definitely don't want to deplete our supply. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to be talking about this piece that that was done by the National Review, bringing to attention a bill that Republicans actually put out in February, trying to be their counterbalance to the Equality Act, where they would enshrine gender identity into being a protected class like you would race and so on. So big problem with that is you don't want situations where something in Loudoun County where if you say you're a boy, you can just go in whatever bathroom you want, you can play whatever sport you want, and you won't be able to separate the line between the genders, which we should be pretty much, hey, there's some universal truths that are real. You can't, sex isn't interchangeable like that. So it would appear that they crafted this bill to kind of say, hey, we see how the road is coming, so we're going to at least play along a little bit while we, I don't know, I guess try to protect religious liberty so religious places aren't really overrun with this kind of stuff. But this is not a good idea. This is not a good idea. So I do have all the Republicans who started this bill, and they wanted it, I guess, to be a compromise, and yet it's still like an all Republican bill. So they pointed it out a few days ago, and we were so busy talking about other things, which we'll still talk about today. I will be talking about the update with the Christmas parade massacre. There was a video released of a ring encounter where when he was arrested, Mr. Brooks, and all I got to say is don't trust people when they knock at your door. He was hanging around somebody's porch saying, hey, I'm just waiting for my Uber, and wanted to use his phone, the guy's phone. So the police ended up coming and get him. You can see it on the ring, and I have the video. I'll show you guys the video. But this man brought him in, let him have a sandwich. If some guy just comes to your door and he claimed he was homeless, like, y'all too soft in these suburbs. Like, what is you doing? Don't just be inviting people into your house and making them sandwiches. You don't know this man. Turns out this man killed 5 people and ran over 48. Ran over more than that, but injured 48, including a little girl. I mean, children. I read about a little girl, and the doctor. She said the doctors have to glue her back together. Is how she put it. Her kidneys blown out and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, just horrific stuff. And this man, out of the kindness of his heart, got duped. Invited him in to make him a sandwich. So, first lesson of the day, don't be a sucker, man. Don't be a sucker. Oh my gosh. Don't trust anybody just because they knock on your door. That's how they run a bunch of cons, and it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. And I also want to tackle, I mentioned the Republicans shifting and making this bill to kind of counteract the trans Identity Equality Act kind of stuff, I guess, to make a safer sort of solution first. But you don't compromise with people who want to utterly destroy you, because they'll just take advantage of your kindness, and that's what they do. But if you don't know, Harry Potter, HBO Max is doing like a special 20th anniversary for it. And there's one person who's notably absent, J.K. Rowling. And there hasn't been an official word on why she isn't there. But we can all guess. People decided to cancel J.K. Rowling because she said men and women are different. She's like, I'll fight for you guys. I'll fight for, those of you who need help. I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but hey, men are men, women are women, and I can't deny that women are women. She wrote op-ed talking about her experience as a woman, that she's suffered abuse and things as a woman. You can't just throw that all away because of how you feel. Sex is still sex, and it's not interchangeable, and people hated her for it. This is someone who bucked the trend, but she created her book. She was controversial with a lot of the Christian community. I couldn't go see Harry Potter when it came out, but she still pushed herself forward. She started introducing gay characters in this really big universe, and now she's still canceled anyway. So it's pretty remarkable. So I do want to talk about that a little bit too, because she released some tweets the other day about how she has so many death threats she could just paper her house with them, and that woman has a big estate. So that is no small feat. But other women have also faced similar things as well. But before we jump into all of it, I want to say, please go to blackteennews.com. Check out different content that I have on my website. Please check out different articles that I have. I mentioned the other day that my dad called me from Guatemala, which he should be coming home tonight. I think I'm the one who's picking him up from the airport. And he told me that he read my article on the Rittenhouse trial and all the shady things that were going on. And he said, hey, that was a really good article. I did not know that these assailants who attacked Kyle, they're not victims, they're assailants, were all white. And I was amazed because, I'm pretty deep into like this case and the news and stuff about it. And my dad's not someone who consumes left-wing media. He's very much, usually in the news and stuff, like there's actually like Fox News is burned into the TV. He needs a new one, but there's like an image like permanently of the Fox News logo like in the corner. But he's been in Guatemala. He was in Mexico before that, and they have a lot of CNN on. I don't know how much it is in like Guatemala, but in Mexico they were there for a couple weeks, and that was all CNN all the time. And the people there they were talking to, working with, they believe some wild things, some absolutely wild things. My sister was talking to somebody in Mexico, and she's like, well, Obama, he was a good Christian president. And she's like, girl. And she started explaining some of the things that Obama was for, and she was floored. And then she's like, and then she mentioned some other things. And then she like ended her statement with, well, I know at least that George Floyd was a hero. And she was like, no. And so she started telling her some things about his criminal record, that, he had fentanyl in his system, that he was actually, I don't know how many of you know this, but he was actually like with his drug dealer, like that day with Chauvin. So it was pretty remarkable that there's so much that we don't know here, but then they're overseas, especially in Mexico, at least our experience with people talking there on the ground, pretty incredible. So my dad just didn't know. And all I can say is you should support independent media. It's really amazing. And Kyle Rittenhouse, there's a little, he was on Tucker last night. I don't know if you guys saw it. But they talked a little bit about all the cameras and stuff that were there. And they, he believes that he probably wouldn't be out if there wasn't so many cameras pointing the way.
I knew that. A lot of people are like, oh, Kyle had time to meet with his attorneys to come up with this amazing defense of self-defense. No, that's not the case. This has been 100% self-defense from the beginning. And I didn't know there was 100 cameras. I knew but I did know I was attacked, and I defended myself.
What do you think would have happened to you if there hadn't been the amount of video that there is?
I can't even imagine. I don't think we'd be sitting here right now having this talk, Tucker.
That's for sure. You'd never get out.
And I believe that. Now, there's a lot of cell phones and other stuff like that, but there are people on the ground, people from the Daily Caller and other outlets that were there just doing independent journalism. The person who snapped the photo of Kyle cleaning off the graffiti, that was someone who was like a freelance photographer. And so if not for people on the ground getting all this kind of stuff as it was going down, because a lot of the media, CNN, the famous Chiron, fiery but peaceful but fiery protest with the fire in the background and the black guy just holding the mic, looking a little intense. So they did their best to shield what was really going on in Kenosha. And one reason, and I've been arguing with a lot of people, and you guys have probably seen it, I do my TikToks and I post some of them on my Facebook page, but I've been going back and forth with a lot of people, and I keep mentioning the criminal record of Rosenbaum and Gage and Will Grosskretz and Mr. Huber. And people say it's not relevant. Well, it's not relevant to the case of Kyle, shooting in self-defense. I mean, the facts speak for themselves. They attacked him, they chased him, they hit him with skateboards, they pointed a gun, tried to steal his gun. How he acted was in self-defense. He couldn't have possibly known that all those people were criminals. So no, it's not relevant to a self-defense case, but I think it's relevant to talk about for sure. For sure. For a couple reasons. One, I think it speaks to the sort of people who were out there at these things constantly. Because what are the odds? People are like, he went out there to hunt. What are the odds? Well, first of all, everyone that he shot were trying to hurt him. He had reasonable fear for his life in all those scenarios. But what are the odds that all of them had a criminal record, including Jump Kick Man, Maurice Leland, I believe was his name. Or was it Freeland? Maurice is his first name. Jump Kick Man. So what are the odds? Is it possible that this is just these riots and stuff were havens for people who were bad actors who wanted to commit more crimes? I think that's probably the case. And I've showed you guys some videos on the show of people doing stuff throughout the riots. This is Jump Kick Man, if you guys don't recall. Guy on the ground, Mr. Huber with the skateboard. That's after he hit him the one time. Obviously, he was going at him again. He did shoot at Jump Kick Man, but he missed. Thank God he missed his black guy, man. Thank God he missed him, because, oh my gosh, that would have, if he had really killed a black guy, oh boy. I mean, it's bad enough that they're making you believe he killed a black guy. Can you imagine if they actually could say he killed a black guy? And some of the media did say he killed a black guy? But we can see the sort of caliber of people who kept going to these things, who the media kept covering for. I also think it's important to note the sort of people that we surrendered our cities to, while people just let them burn, or they just hid in their houses and they applauded them on, and if they got out, they got locked up. We had Kamala Harris and Steve Carell and Harry Styles and all these people promoting these funds, like, hey, get him out. And with the Minnesota Freedom Fund, for example, and they didn't care what the people crimes, what they're alleged of. They just don't like cash bail, so they'll pay anything. Oh, you maybe killed someone? Okay, we'll pay that bail, get you back out on the streets. Oh, you abused your girlfriend? Okay, we'll get you back on the streets. So those are the kind of people that all these people were supporting, because it made them feel good. The narrative made them feel good. So these are the kind of people that they were supporting, that they were flooding back into the streets, that would travel. Gage traveled. I mean, he's not from Kenosha. He lives in Milwaukee. He lives further from Kenosha than Kyle does. I don't hear a lot of people mentioning that and talking about that. They would say, Kyle crossed state lines. He's on a border town. Doesn't really matter too much. But it mattered to them, though. They kept repeating it like it mattered in the case. So I think it's important to realize what the heck we did last year and who we left our cities to. And so I also think it's important to note, because people are trying to say that he shouldn't have been there. You can argue that. But someone should have done something, right? Someone should have done, we should have stood up to say, no, we're not going to continue to do this. And some people did. Like there was an old man who was trying to protect his shop, and he had a fire extinguisher and was spraying people, and then they came up and attacked him. It was terrible. It was terrible, and I've played it for you guys. The person recording it started screaming, and his head was all bloody. And then the people who were around, they justified it. They're like, well, he was getting females. Well, females were up in his shop looting and vandalizing. So yeah, he hit you with the fire, not like with the fire extinguisher, but he like sprayed him to get him out. And then they started saying, well, you don't know what it's like to be a black man on the streets, and they're hunting us out here. They have all these excuses because we've brainwashed them with such jargon, and then we gave them a justification to do all this crazy stuff. People said riots were the cry of the unheard. And there's more bonkers stuff. I was on social media. This was like on my regular account. And I mostly like tweet about like book stuff on that account. But I was going back and forth with some people in the writing community about some of the riots. And then someone, and this was a white girl, she was justifying it. And I'm like, there's black businesses being burned down too, and she essentially told me that it was acceptable collateral damage. And I had a good rebuttal for her. So much to the point where she deleted that comment and she messaged me to apologize. But she didn't apologize because it was wrong to say that those businesses were acceptable collateral damage. She wanted to say, as a white person, it wasn't her place to speak. So I said, sweetheart, I only am going back and forth with you in this dialogue because I want you to open your eyes and see that you're wrong about this. But I don't want you to not speak because you are white. I think you are wrong, but you can still speak. Like we were living, and she didn't reply back. And I guess her white guilt overwhelmed her, and she covered herself in suit and sackcloth and ashes, all that kind of stuff, and just went about her day. But I was just floored at the crazy world we were living in, man. Last year, it was really bonkers, really, really bonkers. But people kept justifying it time and time again. And then if some people could acknowledge that some of the stuff was violent, they just be, well, not all of them are. Well, yeah, not all of them are, but by now, why would you go out to these things? Why? So I think it's important to know, and maybe that's why they have to pretend like they're such good guys, or well, we have to mourn them, like Mark Ruffalo and Pedro Pascal, star of The Mandalorian. And there you got the Incredible Hulk saying we mourn the lives of lost to the same racist system that devalues black lives and devalued the lives of Anthony and JoJo. Got a cute pet name for a rapist. But you know what? It reminds me, and I know this is so long ago for some people, but it reminds me of when Trump was in a meeting, President Trump. He was in a meeting, and they were talking about illegal immigration, and they were talking about gangs like MS-13. And he mentioned that they were animals. Now, the media took that and it was like, Trump calls Mexicans or illegal aliens animals. That was the news story. And it started spreading like wildfire. Now, they did start retracting it a little bit after it spreads, because they love to just do the initial bang and it goes out into the ethos. And then they're like, actually, here's the correction. Here's the context that we purposely left out. And then some people will retweet it, and it's already too late. People have already run away with their emotions and glittered it all over the world. That's what happens, and they do it on purpose. They absolutely do. So Trump didn't call Mexicans or illegal aliens animals. He was talking specifically about MS-13. Who do like horrific things to people, like tribal, violent kind of things to people. And so once it was corrected that Trump didn't call like all Mexicans or whoever animals, people on the left were like, well, you shouldn't call anyone an animal. And then it became this weird thing of, you guys are calling these evil gang members who do this tribalistic brutality stuff on people. It's not okay to call them animals. And so you had a weird thing where they wanted to defend them just because Trump had said they were animals. There was like this one like leftist priest. They're like, everyone has dignity. They're not an animal. I'm like, get over yourself. Absolutely get over yourself. Paul called someone like a urinal, you whited wall. Like, sometimes there's other words beside calling somebody out their name is appropriate. And it was amazing to me watching the media, the verified check marks, the liberals not justify, but uplift these criminals, these brutal criminals who definitely shouldn't be here, just to down Trump. I think there's probably still people out there who believe that he calls them animals. People believe the dumbest things with the Trump racism stuff. Like, people, when I argue like Trump's not a racist, and then there's a list that Vox has, like an article with a bunch of stuff, and then like, here you go, and they'll post the link, and you go through like some of them, and it's like, okay, this is false, 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 this is false. And there's so many things that people try to push still to that. But I can bring like a recent list of Joe Biden and be like, okay, this is real, this is real. And they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. But it's just amazing what these people will do. Just because how politics will blind people. So much to the point, and you guys probably saw I put out a video talking about white privilege, because someone tried to tell me that Kyle had white privilege, Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm like, his white privilege didn't keep him out of jail. His white privilege didn't keep him from getting charged. His white privilege didn't lower his bail from $2 million. His white privilege didn't get his case thrown out. And I'm like, I know a lot of people thought that judge was on his side, but there were times during the trial when they definitely could have mistrialed with prejudice. And they didn't do that. So there's just a lot of areas where his white privilege didn't work. And then at the same time, he's a white guy who killed 3 other white guys. So how come their white privilege doesn't overrule his white privilege? Especially since he was protecting brown businesses. So how come the racist judge and the racist white jury didn't go, oh, here's the math. There's 3 white guys. They have more privilege than Kyle combined. So we have to definitely send him to jail. So they want this narrative of white privilege so bad, even though they know, they keep saying they're not surprised by the verdict. And they're not surprised by the verdict because it was obvious it was self-defense. But now they have to attack the system. Well, the system protected him. The same system that protects him protects me. Like, we're equal under the law, but they don't like that. They don't like that. So anyway, I said all that to say, got on that rant to say, please support independent media, because these people will do anything, say anything to gain power. And they're mad at independent media too. People who have Substacks, they're mad that people leave the New York Times or the Intercept or wherever, they go on Substack, and people subscribe to these journalists who had to leave because they were being smothered or pressured by New York Times, these big establishment places, because they wouldn't walk the fine line of what they said. Glenn Greenwald, he left his paper that he started because they tried to shield him or try to keep him from writing things critical of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And he's like, I'm out here. And now he's just writing on Substack, and a lot of these people are making a lot of money, and then they resent it because these old school newspapers aren't doing so hot. So they'll do what they can to squeeze out whoever they can. But thank God for, Daily Caller and other people who were on the ground when all this went down. Kyle said, if there wasn't all this video here, he doesn't think he'd be out. I think that's probably true. So if you guys want to support Black Teen News, I ask that you do that. You consider going to blacktnews.com and you consider helping out the show. I got the little ticker tape down there, scrolling by. Please consider supporting Black Tea. Please consider supporting Black Tea. You can also go to the website, blacktnews.com, and check out different merchandise that I have in the store. But if you can, consider leaving a donation because there's more things we want to do, want to grow. But we got to, and there's ways we got to get around sort of the barriers of big tech. And I can do that if you guys are willing to help me do that as well. And also check out different stuff that I have on the website that you guys can buy as well. That also helps. It all goes a long way. I appreciate everyone who shares, who's recently joined, who spreads the word. All my social media handles are at Black Tea News on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. The only one that's different is at True Black Tea, and that is on my Twitter page. So another thing I want to talk about, let's go back to Wisconsin. And you guys know Mr. Brooks drove into a crowd of people at a Christmas parade the other day, and there's 5 who were killed, more than 48 who were injured, some of them in critical condition. Like I said, I just saw a little, the New York Post reported there was a little girl who said the doctors had to glue her back together. Her kidney was blown out. All kinds of other things are just atrocious. And so this is, I guess, is a little ad for Ring, I guess. But it kind of shows that the owner is like really gullible. So we've captured on a Ring device. Apparently, not apparently, he did go to someone's house and said he was waiting for an Uber, and the police ended up coming and arresting him. But here's that video footage.
Hey, I called an Uber, and I'm supposed to be waiting for it over here, but I don't know when it's coming. Can you call it for me, please? I'm homeless. I don't know. It's supposed to be him. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's what's up. My ID. Hey, do you know this guy? Absolutely not. Okay.
Absolutely not. So why'd you let him in, sir? I'm not saying he actually knows him, but man, you guys cannot be that naive. So a little FYI, people will come up and say I'm homeless to get in and stuff. He wasn't, so he lied about that. And then he said, let me show you my ID. And so that's a thing that con people will do. Like, let me show you my ID. So you just have the assumption that they are legit because they're willing to show you that piece of identification. But this man invited him into his house, I guess, because he said he wanted to use a phone. But he gave him a sandwich. So please be a little bit more suspicious of people, man. Oh my gosh. That's quite a story to tell, I guess, if you're that man. But how terrifying must that be? I don't know if he has a family or whatnot, that man who just let him in, but geez. So please, guys, just be a little oh my gosh. Be a little more suspicious of people. Y'all a little too soft in the burbs. And I did live in the burbs for a little bit, but yeah, y'all a little too soft. But you know what? I guess that's not even true, because some of y'all are so suspicious out there too. Because when we moved out to Clarkston, we had a big white van, and people were calling the police on us because they didn't recognize the van, I guess. And so one day, my dad was just parked in front of our house, And the police came up, and my dad is like, I think he was eating something. And then he's like, the police come by, he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, I'm parked in front of our house. And the police actually apologized, and they said the people around here are so paranoid. So he understood, but they're supposed to check out that stuff. So I appreciate that. And my dad is lighter than I am. I don't know what they thought. I don't know if they thought he was black or Arab or whatever. Man just driving around a van. So I don't know if it was racial profiling. I don't know if they're just like, that van doesn't look like it belongs in this nice neighborhood. And it was a nice van. It was just big. We just had a big van that could cart around all of us. But another thing that happened though in that area, that subdivision, I guess there were people who would actually drive around and go into the houses as they were building them, and then like take out like appliances and stuff in the house. So there was actual like theft going on, and of different kind of not on the low end of theft. So maybe that was a thing. There's different factors that could come into play, but the police were nice, but we did get called on. So some people are suspicious, but please don't, if a guy knocks on your door and is like, let me use the phone or whatever, just kindly say, get off my porch. And and if you need to make a call for somebody, maybe you can make the call for them, but don't invite them in your house like that. And I know that breaks the heart of some good Samaritans, but guys, you never know who it's gonna be. You never know who it's gonna be. So it appears right now with this story that they're not going to tell you the motivation behind why he did what he did. So people were really mad at T-Post Millennial and Tim Pool, because they did mention that he does have posts in the past that are like BLM specific, that he did have some posts that were upset about the Rittenhouse verdict. But that doesn't necessarily mean that is why he did what he did. But it does make some people suspicious that they don't want to outright just say what the motivation is. We would hope that would maybe come out in some time. I don't know how important it is to some people. But it's suspicious when they withhold information. So, because, if it was something on the, a right winger doing something crazy, that would be a big news story. But if it was actually, a left wing crazy person doing, something, then they want to spin kind of a different narrative. Like on the baseball field, when you had a crazy Bernie Sanders supporter who according to Rand Paul, was shooting at them because he said, this is for healthcare, and nearly killed Steve Scalise. The story wasn't about how Democrats have really, intense rhetoric and are making their supporters crazy by saying Republicans are literally killing people because they won't support their healthcare bills. For a little bit, they did talk about gun control, but it wasn't even that intense. I think they really wanted to kind of come together a little bit, say this was a bad thing that happened, and sweep it under the rug, and not follow up with any sort of retrospect. So that and Republicans were nice enough not to really say, hey, this was a crazy person from your side who did it. So, and then I'm not saying that they should have said, hey, this was Bernie's fault, because the man who did it, he's responsible for his own actions. But we know the media treats stories differently. So people are suspicious because they're mum on it. And then they said, we're not going to have like other press conferences about this. And it was a pretty big thing that happened in that town. So it's a story we'll still follow as long as there's still details that'll come out about it. But people are still digging, people are still fishing. But it seems like this is one that they want to go a little quiet on, which is interesting. Definitely interesting. So another thing that is happening right now is that our gas prices are very high. Last time I filled up the van, I'm sorry, not the van, it was the SVU, but it was like $70. And when I was at the gas station with my sister, she was like, I remember when it was 30. It's just so high right now. I think the average gas around me, and I'm in Michigan, is $3.49. That's mostly what I see. Some places I'll see it maybe $3.39. The lowest I've seen is maybe $3.19, but I haven't seen anything else lower in the Metro Detroit area. So it's getting pretty bad, getting pretty high. But good thing our governor made sure to get rid of the 6% sales tax on pads, because that's what Michiganders were really concerned about, the sales tax on pads. We can go with the high gas, but man, those pads, that was a killer. That 6% sales tax I have to worry about once a month. She really, good thing that our governor is really on it. No, but the gas prices have been high, so much so that Biden's been trying to shift blame in all sorts of other ways. Tried to blame it on he comes into office. He's like, we're not going to do any drilling here, which the media tried to say Biden wouldn't do that. He didn't say that, and Trump had to literally go to rallies with Biden saying, we're going to stop drilling. He said it in several different places on the different debates, and he just roll the tape, and the media kept trying to do fact checks to just make you all believe them instead of what Biden actually said. So Trump literally took projector screens of huge screens that he would play it at his rally, different clips of Biden saying different things, because hopefully the media would at least play Biden's own words that he already said it on their networks during their debates. But they still ran cover for him, and boop, one of the first things he does starts saying, you can't drill here, you can't drill, we're going to stop there. So now we're at the point where gas is really high, and they want to relieve the prices because his poll numbers are so bad. It's so bad. And Kamala Harris's are worse, and people can feel it in their wallets, and they know it's only going to get worse. So they are tapping into our own reserves. But one thing that you should, if you haven't seen this, our energy secretary, Granholm, was in some kind of music video the other day. If you haven't seen it, this is wild.
So fool, I reject your rule. We gotta leave you in the ground.
I'm out of the door with my foot to the floor.
We gotta leave you in the ground. Gasoline, gasoline, you're driving me insane. Gasoline, gasoline,
The world's aflame.
gasoline, gasoline. I found someone new, someone better.
Better than you.
Sea levels are rising.
Polar bears are dying.
Our children are crying.
Around the world, countries are racing to phase out gasoline cars.
Gotta go quick, electric.
Change the way we move around.
Are driving to electric.
Gotta go quick, electric. Change the way we move around. I got a new love in electric.
Yeah, it goes on. So, the short, blonde, older lady is our energy secretary. She's a former governor of Michigan. So I had a conversation with someone on one of my shows one day, and I can't remember if it was Man of Justice or This Is Savvy. It was a TikToker, and I said, our energy secretary used to be the governor, and the era that she presided over is known as a lost decade. And their eyes bucked, and they were just like, wow, I cannot believe that. Talk about failing upwards. So yeah, it was just a really hard time in that era of Granholm, and it was just really hard for families. The economy was bad, unemployment was high, people were starting to leave the state because everything was so bad. But now she's energy secretary. So if you're wondering why things are a little awry, you probably shouldn't let people fail upwards. But that is the story of the government. That is the story of the government. That is also the story of media in general, mainstream media, and also entertainment. A lot of people fell upwards. You can't of course, that happens in like corporate America, like private sector kind of stuff. But you usually need people to be somewhat competent at their jobs if you're going to keep promoting them, if you want your company to stay afloat. But when it comes to government, you can promote people who, because of favors, political favors, and they have big teams where maybe they can hopefully solve problems. But when you have people who are just run by ideology, everyone else, it's like, screw you. So in that music video, if you could call it that, which I don't know who put that together, but like I've done little ones for fun, and I've done some for my channel. That was not good. That was not good. I don't know if it was stylistically based off of something, but obviously not great. But they do have a goal of getting us off of gas and getting rid of coal, everything like that. And I saw a video of Elon Musk talking about like that should be the goal anyway, but just like in a natural progression of we can only use these resources for so long. So you'd want to find an alternative sort of measure, but we're not going to solve the problem by relying on Bidens and AOCs and grand homes. We're going to solve the problems by people like Elon Musk, people who are, going to take initiative and start building things and working on a free market sort of solution. That's how we're going to solve these issues, if they can be solved at all. It's not going to be Granholm who does it. So people are concerned right now that we're going to tap into our reserves, that we're going to use our reserves, and then the price will go lower, and then they'll get back to high, and then we'll have a depleted reserve, and then we'll just have to have our stuff that is so high that we'll be like, well, anything to not be off gas because the prices are too high, and go off and buy these really expensive electric cars. A lot of these people are already invested in. So that's the big concern that a lot of people have. And again, they're so devoted in their ideology. I believe that. But gas prices were so high under the Obama era too. And so many people forgot that. So many people forgot that. They took it for granted. They took it for granted. Gas got really low under Trump at one point. Really low. And they haven't been this high since the last time Biden was in the White House. And Biden the other day said, can you believe gas prices are this high? Well, yeah, I can. Because it's just like deja vu, sir. It's just really deja vu. So if you believe that America can be or should be energy independent, let us be energy independent. Let us drill on our land. Let us not have to rely on this foreign powers of the oil. Keep our reserves where they are, but keep, trying to fill them with what we're doing here. Don't just shut everything down to appease your left-wing cult. And at the same time, get this, guys, at the very same time, you can still work on other alternative measures. And we can get there one day, but everybody acknowledges that we're not there now. But people still want to push the deadline forward, even though we're not there now. And it just makes everything more expensive. It's crazy. But I thought I would share that with you guys. Here's Granholm again.
But the bottom line is that this president and this administration are looking at every single tool to shield American families from the impact of rising energy prices. And we're working through an energy transition. And we've got to start by adding energy. And the reality is we have to take some time to get off of oil and gas. We recognize this. This is a transition.
Yeah, so don't try to speed the process along. There's nothing that government doesn't create. They don't innovate. They just suck dollars from you, and then they subsidize their friends. And because they subsidize their friends actually don't have to make great crap because it's getting so much government dollars. and then they pay themselves and they keep funding it into projects. Granholm, Biden, they're not going to solve these problems. You have to empower the private sector to fix these issues. So gas is high. I don't know where it is everywhere else. I know it's high in California. I was talking to somebody last night. I pre-recorded a show that's going to air Saturday for my Let's TikTok about it. They moved from California because everything was too expensive. They're like, I know where I want to, my range where I am right now, where I want to live comfortably and where my finances are. And I can't do that in California because it's just astronomically too high to live there. Plus the gas and everything, bad policies. And he moved on to Texas. And he's also like a LA native too. LA and like from New York. So when he went to Texas, people are like, what is you doing here, boy? And he's like, don't worry, I'm not a psycho. I'm not left wing. I'm just here to enjoy my life and enjoy my freedoms. I'm not here to change the whole entire state like the leftist dream is, to just pour blue people everywhere and just infiltrate like Austin and just keep spreading it about. He's not like that. So he let them know. But California, so many people are escaping from there. And it's unfortunate when they carry their bad left-wing policies. But I know in some places, it was on Fox News one day that a place had gotten to like $7. Now, that is not the average, but it had gotten that high. We got to do something. They got to do something, but it's not. There's no reason why you should any confidence in Biden, not in the least bit. I do also want to talk about this got leaked by Kimberly Crenshaw. If you're unfamiliar with Kimberly Crenshaw, she's one of the people who founded critical race theory. And I've told you guys this a lot, and I wrote an article on my website about how no, they do not teach your kids straight up everything critical race theory, but they do introduce it in particular ways. And Kimberly Crenshaw, she went on Joy Reid's show and was like, well, I would know if it was in schools. But at the same time, she goes to other events and they talk about critical race theory insights. So here's a little bit of her talking about it.
So while in reality, critical race theory traditionally is a law school class, the truth of the matter is some of the basic inspiration, some of the things that we're all trying to do is the same. We're trying to create a more inclusive democracy. And we know, as Brown versus Board of Education said, inequality in education undermines our democracy. Well, some of that inequality is lack of access to the stories that make us, the stories that are core to understanding what America is. What America is partly made up of what America has been. So critical race theory is simply now the huge container for anti-racist work, anti-racist education. And what they're telling us is.
Yeah, so there's a little bit. So she's been going on these tours, having these conversations with teachers and administrators and activists and so on. They know that they teach it to some degree. And critical race theory, unlike other academic disciplines, it's meant to have an activist element to it. That's actually in like critical race theory. I think that's in critical race theory, an introduction, specifically where that book is from. So you're supposed to go out and spread it like it's like you're supposed to be evangelical with it, you know. It's like their gospel, and they're supposed to have converts. So when people come on these news shows and they like Joy Reid and so on, and they're like, it's nowhere, and they lie to your face about it, and they go to the school board meetings and like, it's not here, it's somewhere. You got to just keep looking for it, because it's somewhere, and they're trying to integrate it, and maybe it's integrated so finely that it's just not obvious. But if people are talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, just know that those are some of the buzzwords. You got to look a little deeper. Equity is not equality. Equity is not equality. I'll say it one more time. Equity is not equality. And we can go back to the Rittenhouse case, and I think I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. They talked a lot about these systems. They knew he was in it. They weren't surprised of the verdict because he was obviously innocent. They didn't say that, but that's why it was obvious. But they said the system upheld him. It upholds white supremacy. And Joy Reid went on a rant talking about gun laws and so on, and how they help white people take care of property, protect their property, as if the same laws that apply to Kyle Rittenhouse doesn't apply to everyone else. As a matter of fact, the same day, at the same time he was getting offered self-defense, someone else was getting off on self-defense, and they're black. And I'm surprised. Well, I'm not really surprised, but his story wasn't really in the media highlight, which is it's a little surprising because the story sounded similar to Breonna Taylor's case, where the police came in and his girlfriend actually died because they did like a raid, it was botched, and he shot back, and so he was on trial for shooting the cop. But they came in from his perspective. He was protecting himself, so he got off on self-defense, and the only reason why he's doing time is, I believe, is because he is a felon, wasn't supposed to have the gun. I believe. They can fact check me, but I believe that is the reason why he's still doing time. But as far as the murder charge or self-defense, same thing that applies to Kyle. Doesn't matter the race, but they don't like when there's outcomes that they don't like. So they use equity because equity is how they rig the system. So if someone says equity, it's not equality. And if they wanted equality, they would say equality. But equality is bad. Equality is bad. I'll give you another example. There was some, I believe it was in Arizona. They had some, they were getting rid of ballot harvesting, and people were angry. So there was a pretty big TikToker, and he did a story talking about how, Republicans, they always do these dog whistles where they say, well, prove to me where there's racism. Now that's funny. If we say, we want you to show your work, that's racism. Okay. So his example of where you see systemic racism was in the laws that they ended up passing for voting. And so they're trying to get rid of ballot harvesting. Now, if you gave your ballot, if you were related to someone, you could still give it to a family member for them to drop off or something like that. But could you like be a random person and pick up like 50 ballots for people around like the village or something? No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So they're trying to say that it was racist because like on some maybe reserves or something, they can't vote that way because it's harder to have access to get their drop off of stuff and so on. And then they ruled like they took it to the courts, and the courts ruled, no, the laws are equal to the people. And then they're saying, well, it's not good enough that it's equal. We need them to be adjusted for what we say. My opinion on voting is that it should be one day. And people who need an absentee ballot, like they should. In Michigan, it was pretty easy to get one anyway, because we had like, some people, we did end up passing no reason absentee and stuff. But before that, when I voted absentee, I just went to my clerk's office. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be in town. And by in town, I just like in like the proximity of my house, because I was in Lansing, so that was like an hour or something away. So I got a ballot, I filled it out, and that was it. Like, no one asked me like 50 questions on the validity of my claim. I just asked for a ballot, I filled it out, and I really didn't like it because part of me was like, what if they change it? So I was super paranoid, and I didn't like it anyway. I would just rather go to the poll and do it myself. But I don't like the early voting stuff. I don't like that stuff personally. But states have different rules and so on. You know, we're a federalist system. States can set up what they want, but I really feel like it should be one day. And if you have to have a bunch of polling locations to try to handle that number, that's cool. But that's how I feel. That's how I feel. That would be equal. But they felt like if you get rid of ballot harvesting, that would be wrong because it would disproportionately impact other people. Well, things are going to disproportionately impact people. The rides at Cedar Point, if they have certain height requirements, regardless of your age, if you don't hit that mark, you're not getting on that ride. It's not discriminatory against different races. It's not discriminatory against different ages. The equality is you have to be this tall to ride this ride. It is not systemic racism. But equity would be like, well, we need you to adjust that for this age block, or you need to adjust it because Asians are normally shorter, and we want to make sure that they can get on this ride at this age, the same as this boy who's like genetics is like like they're Viking and they're super tall or something. No, equality. There's a difference between equality and equity. Equity is rigging the system to get the desired outcome. Equality is it's equal across the board. So it doesn't matter that, again, Kyle's self-defense, same thing applies to me. They didn't like the outcome of their political stooge and the person that they were trying to bring down, that they got a pass. So they're willing to destroy everything and remake it all in their image because that's what they want. So if you hear diversity, equity, inclusion, run for the hills. Run for the hills. If that stuff is in your kid's school, you got to look out for that. So they're not going to say critical race theory, it's DEI. If there's some DEI stuff in your kid's curriculum, go to the school board meetings. Talk to your students, your kids' teachers. Consider homeschooling them. I know not everybody wants to abandon the public school system, but it's in there. I promise you. I promise you it's in there. Maybe not everywhere, but it's in a lot of places. And even in places where they started to ban it, teachers are radical teachers are still getting together, try to figure out how they can get around all this stuff anyway. So personally, I wouldn't put them in public school, and I would just homeschool. Like, well, you're going to just shield your kids from the world? I'm going to teach them right from wrong. I'm going to teach them right from wrong. Y'all don't even want to teach objective truths, which really quickly let me run through the fact that there was a bill apparently introduced in February by Republicans. By these Republicans. There's a Michigander on there, Fred Umpton. He voted for the infrastructure bill, so he's on my angry at you from Michigan list. There's some names on here that disappoint me, for sure. But there was a bill they got together and decided to sponsor and put through, and it's called the Fairness for All Act, and it's supposed to be their, I guess, alternative to the Equality Act. And the thinking is that we need to put something together to stop the Equality Act from coming through and just totally overrunning and bombarding religious liberty. And if the LGBT mafia is going to come in, if the Democrats are going to come in and they're going to push this stuff, it'll be better if we come to some kind of compromise. Well, the Democrats don't want to compromise because it's still a Republican thing. They don't want to compromise. They want the Equality Act. They have what they have, and they're going to push it through if they can. But right now, they don't. If Republicans are like unified, they're not going to be able to pass a lot of the really, really left-wing agenda that they want to shove through. So if that is the case, why are Republicans playing ball with them at all? Now, maybe they thought they were in a different headspace back in February because that's when they had put it out. But I don't want to see anything like this pop up. I don't want to see anything like that go through. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And there's some things that are like objective truths. I don't want gender identity to be on the same space as a protected class as your race. I don't want to get to the point where you can find someone, and I guess there's parts in the country where they do this anyway, which I guess those need to be challenged constitutionally, but I don't want it to be a big thing where if you misgender someone, that they will decide to fire you, that they will decide to fine you, that they'll decide to jail you. I don't want that to end up being a thing because it's compelled speech and there's some objective truths. Male, female, man, woman, they're not interchangeable. They're absolutely not interchangeable. And I think deep down people know this, really, because if it was just a matter of your identity, you would not need everyone else outside of your bubble to affirm it to the point where you have to force them to say what you want them to say. Or you could just live with how you want to live instead of doing the surgery, getting the hormones, but they deep down, they know that sex and gender are intertwined, and that's why they try to match their identity with the physical attributes of like a woman or of a man, because they realize, at least on some inherent level, that sex matters. Do they have the chromosomes? No, but they still want to shape and mold their body to that particular way. Now, we also don't need more confusion with the sports where you have males against females competing, because some of these girls have been decimated. Records have been decimated. Women have been beaten up. And you have some people like Tulsi Gabbard making total sense, like this totally goes against the protection that women are supposed to have in Title IX. But people do not care. So I don't understand Republicans willing to give leeway to this and open that door. So the thinking is that they can tame them, but they don't want to be tamed. So why can't you just push back? Why can't you push back? There's some realities that you can't fight back on. Now, one person who got really reamed and canceled was J.K. Rowling. I mentioned this at the very beginning. HBO Max is doing a 20th anniversary of Harry Potter. They're bringing back the original cast of Harry, Ron, and Hermione and other people. And the person who's notably absent is J.K. Rowling. Now, it's been pretty mum on why, but everyone can imagine. Everyone can imagine the reason. The reason is because she believes that women are women and men are men. She's not transphobic. She said, I'll fight with you against any sort of thing that's discriminatory against you, but I cannot just go with you and believe that a man is a man, a man is a woman, and a woman is a man. And she wrote an op-ed about how she's had particular experiences and even discrimination based off of the fact that she was a woman, and she can't just go along and say, hey, gender doesn't matter. So she got canceled. This is a woman who wrote a series that is the biggest book phenomenon there is next to the Bible. She wrote about inclusion and diversity without having to have gay pride flags everywhere. And then she ended up making Dumbledore gay anyway. Like, this is someone who taught that lesson to so many kids around the world. And then they turned on her. They turned on her on the icon. And now they're not even going to allow a creator of this content to be a part of their 20th anniversary. It's amazing. So she recently wrote a post talking about the sort of discrimination that she's faced. She said she's gotten so many death threats over all this time that she could paper her house with them, which is really no small feat because J.K. Rowling has a lot of money. And she said, I've now received so many death threats, I could paper the house with them, and I haven't stopped speaking out, perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there. The best way to prove your movement isn't a threat to women is to stop stalking, harassing, and threatening us. And I think what sparked this thread off is that last Friday, her family's address was leaked because there were some actors who came by her house and they took a photo in front of it, but they made sure that her address was visible. So people started like doxing her family, and they were under distress about this. Now she has connections, and she had like police in there, helping her out, making sure that she wasn't harmed. So but that's a luxury you have when you're a rich and powerful person. But she also mentioned other women who don't have the same resources that she has that have also been attacked as well for standing up for the fact that women are women and men are men. So a lot of these people are toxic, and they don't have a goal of stopping anywhere. There's no achievement that will be enough. There will always be the next phenomenon. And there were quite a few LGBT conservatives that spoke up about the lobby of a lot of these things. They're pushing like the the pride stuff and adding on all the pluses and Qs and R, that go on after the LGBT, the plus. There's a lot of money involved when you continuously keep adding victimhood. Tammy Bruce, who's on Fox News, she's a lesbian. She's a conservative, but she used to be a radical sort of feminist person. And she ended up leaving that sect of people because she realized they didn't want to solve anything. They were always after their next thing to chase down, their next ambulance to chase, I guess. And so once she realized that they weren't really in the business of solving the issues of feminism, that they profited off of feminism, and so there would always be like a new thing to fight for, even if it's silly. Because there's a lot, people are fighting for microaggressions. Do you know they're micro? Do you know why they're micro? Because they don't matter, because they're so tiny. Maybe you can be a little annoyed about something. Like if you get annoyed because, one time someone wrote something about like hotel shampoo is systemically racist because it's just for generic white people hair and not black people hair. And most people are like, you use hotel shampoo? Because most people, I mean, you may use it in the pinch or whatever, but if I go somewhere and I know I'm gonna like get in a pool or something, I try to bring my own shampoo. So if you're saying that is systemic racism, you are first world problems is all I got to say about that. First world problems. If those are the things that are going to press you. So anyway, there's always something else to fight for. A lot of people don't have an end goal in mind. The Republican conservative sort of idea should be like, we want to make sure that people can be as free as possible and that their role in government is to protect your liberty. That's what we expect, like on the right. Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to say, you know what, we're gonna compromise here because we really hope that you guys don't totally severely oppress us. So we're going to kind of open the door and compromise with you so you will maybe not come back and make it worse. And that maybe they'll nod for a little while, but they totally plan to come back and make it worse. So don't do it. Don't do it. If any of these people are your Congress people, they don't even have to be yours. You can just contact them and call them and say, hey, please don't do anything like this. The Democrats are already doing so bad. Why do we want to just, I don't know, shoot ourselves in the foot? Like they're not going to be able to pass stuff if we don't help them get stuff passed. Hardly. So don't do it. Don't do dumb stuff. There's no need to. There's absolutely no need. So just if you see these guys, just mention like, hey, what was the Fairness for All Act about? Don't pass stuff like that. I don't want to see them pass anything. Anything. Anything at all. So we know 22 will come up. The Build Back Better is still what they're trying to push, and Democrats have crazy talking points surrounding it, saying if you don't pass it, you don't want to help the economy and moms and we need childcare because the expenses are so high because childcare is so high, so we got to pass Build Back Better. Which another thing about the childcare is that right now there's a big demand, but if you put more money for people to be able to pay people in that sphere, we still have a supply problem. And then if they put sort of big regulations on people that maybe Christian organizations, which a lot of them are Christian based, for doing a lot of this childcare stuff, and they opt out, you're going to have a really bad supply problem. So before you even try to pass all that stuff, you better make sure that there's people out there who's willing to even watch kids. There's that. Government's not good at solving problems yet. As soon as we realize that, we'll be a lot better further along. Be a lot But I don't want to see them pass that. I don't expect anything else that they come up with be very good. Anything that they can get Republicans, I assume they will take a sweeping majority in 2022 in the House and in the Senate. And if that is the case and they want to pass a bill, whatever they could get the other Democrats to sign on to and whatever they can get Biden to pass will probably also be very too, maybe they'll say moderate, but it'll probably be bad too. So I would just like to see you guys fight to keep our liberties. And if it's not involved with keeping our liberties, just, I don't know, relax. To 2024. You can pass your budgets. You got to pass budgets. But I don't want to see any crazy legislation under Biden. So stop it. Stop it. So that is the show for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please visit blackteennews.com. Again, if you haven't read my critical race theory article, which there'll be more, that explains, hey, they are teaching it. Is it blatant? No, but there is a way that they do it. Why would they wait for your kids to go to law school to indoctrinate them when they literally want to change the world? So it explains a little bit. There's tons of resources in it, so you can check that out at blackteennews.com. If you're still looking at, talking points and stuff, the Rittenhouse stuff, I got that on blackteennews.com, and other articles I'll be dropping soon. So please make sure that you visit the website. If you guys would like to support blackteennews.com, go to blackteennews.com/donate, and also look at the different merchandise that we have on the show, on the website as well. Like the My Money, My Business shirt. Also got the pumpkin spice season. We got those in different colors. We got those long sleeve. It is unisex if you want to get that. Also got those in mugs. And also, if you would like to look at any good content that you might want to get your kids some books for Christmas, I do write books. This is a middle grade chapter book for your kids. Very conservative values for them. I've had it on good authority that it is an epic story. So please go ahead and check it out and get it for your kids. If you go to blackteennews.com in the merchandise, there's a link to my website where I sell my books. And I have young adult, contemporary fantasy, paranormal romance, historical fiction, fantasy. Got a lot of different stuff for you and other people in your life. If they're readers, not readers, maybe to be someone's next new favorite book. So check out all the goodies that I have. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm probably not going to stream on Thanksgiving, but I'll be here tomorrow. God bless.